And GOP lawmakers are fuming over President Barack Obama's unilateral action on immigration reform. President Obama's plan offers deportation relief and work permits to an estimated 5 million undocumented immigrants. U.S. House of Representatives Speaker John Boehner denounced the president's executive order and vowed to take action. The president answered his critics during his speech last night.
Those members of Congress who question my authority to make our immigration system work better, or question the wisdom of me acting where Congress has failed, I have one answer: pass a bill.
Opponents of President Obama's executive order are taking every opportunity to say he lacks legal authority. They argue that the U.S. Constitution requires presidents to enforce all laws as written. The Constitution, they contend, does not permit presidents to pick and choose which violators to exempt. We turn to Congressional investigations lawyer Matt Kaiser for analysis of the legal issues surrounding President Obama's executive order. Matt is a partner with the law firm Kaiser, LeGrand & Dillon, and he's also an adjunct professor at at Georgetown University Law Center. And he's joining us from Washington. Matt, hi, it's good to see you.
Hi, good evening.
So first of all, let's talk about whether or not what the president has done in terms of addressing immigration with an executive action is even a precedent. And what you and I both know is that it's not. A number of presidents have used this authority to address immigration during their terms, haven't they?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. President Reagan did it. In 1986, there was immigration reform that made its way through Congress. President Reagan didn't think it went far enough, and he issued an executive order that did something very similar to what President Obama did that affected 100,000 people. President Bush did a similar thing. 1.5 million folks got the functional equivalent of amnesty through an executive order that he issued. It's not new.
And as I understand it, what he's really exercising here in many of these actions are what's known as prosecutorial discretion. Is that right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. The basic idea is that there is so much that a president has to manage, and he has such limited resources that if a president wants to say we're going to go after drug dealers and gang members and felons instead of going after families who are here and working and paying their taxes, that's completely within his discretion. That's something the president gets to decide. And I think that's what you see with this order.
And I think it is safe to assume, because the president had to know this kind of backlash was coming, that this has been thoroughly researched by the attorneys within the federal government. Do you have any doubt in your mind that the president is on firm legal ground here?
No, I don't think there's any doubt here that a president, that any executive has the ability, has the right to decide where the priorities of the government are going to go. They don't have to enforce every law. If they want to let jaywalking take a pass and instead go after people who are shooting folks in the streets, they can make that decision. And this is just a version of the same principle.
John Boehner, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, has said that the House will take action against this executive action. What could they do?
Well, they could sue. They could sue. We saw the lawsuit that was filed about the Affordable Care Act, about Obamacare. They could try to do something very similar. What they could do, I think this is unlikely in our current political climate, they could pass a law. And if they could actually enact immigration reform and do something that the president would sign, that would be a more effective and more appropriate way to respond to what the president did with his speech last night.
Yeah, indeed. In fact, in the speech, that's what the president suggested, that
exactly.
If you want to get something done, then he said it quite succinctly and effectively: pass a bill.
Right.
The Republicans are accusing the president of treating the executive branch as if he were an emperor or a king somehow, but he hasn't even passed the most or used his executive authority more than other presidents, has he?
No, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. When you look at the executive orders that prior presidents have issued, President Obama he's nowhere near as far along in using his executive authority. If anything, he's been a timid president rather than the kind of overreaching monarch that you hear him described as.
Mm-hmm. So can you explain then why it looks like the president has doubled back on this? It was a couple of years ago where he said that he didn't think he had the authority to do this. He didn't think it was a good idea, and so he wasn't going to do it. And of course, he was calling upon Congress to pass a bill back then, and now he's done it. Why the flip-flop?
Sure, I think that's a great question. I think President Obama was wrong before. What he has, and in some sense this is admirable, it's just very sad in today's political climate, he seems to have a real belief in the legislative process. He's a former senator. He was never an executive before this. He thinks that if you just go in and work together, you can pass a law and you can move things along. And sometimes that's what happens, and that's good, but it doesn't mean that the president doesn't have the power to do things if that process fails.
Yeah, it certainly has created some ripples. We're going to see how this all plays out. Matt Kaiser, thank you so much. Good to talk to you.
Thank you. Have a good night.